My Japanese listeners recall, from my last speech, my concerns about your government's dangerous nuclear agenda, and my inspiration from your public's commitment to saving even the people whose leaders once brutalized your innocent cities. While I exhort Americans to hold our courts and leaders responsible for reversing 75 years of our world extinction drive, I encourage you to gather in Tokyo, not just Hiroshima, demanding that your government destroy 90% of its plutonium and daily account for the other 10%. Before allowing your nuclear plants back online, learn how each could melt down from any loss of cooling water, not just floods or earthquakes or tidal waves. Demand of the world, not just your government, that from now on every spent fuel rod sitting in water awaiting catastrophic explosion or culling for bomb-grade plutonium be instead ground up and diluted into some irretrievable, non-polluting form. Even if everyone is mixed into a 50-ton cement block and dropped into the 7-mile deep Mariana Trench. Some nations like yours or France are now hooked on nuclear power, but you should be responsible for using the few dollars you'll have left after the endless nuclear cleanup to work on less crazy energy sources. The world only survives without a nuclear industry. Not one hunk of enrichable uranium, not one chunk of bomb-ready plutonium, and not a single fuel rod from nuclear power generation, promising more plutonium bombs. Reversing nuclear power addiction and bullying the nuclear bullies into disarmament are each realistically 30-year programs. People everywhere demand an end to nuclear power as fast as more safe energy can be generated. Any private citizen can negotiate with other citizens across borders as if multiple nations' nuclear power, nuclear weapons, or weapons capacity could relatively soon be reduced to elimination by a formal treaty. Your exercises paving the way include anti-bribery, balanced budget, and conventional weapons manufacturing and invasion military elimination in your discussions, all part of the swords into plowshares, international recovery of democratic people's self-rule. People save the world, bringing better elected leaders aboard to help when activist and court direction teach, guide, select, and control them. Leaders always fail to grant apathetic populations rights and safety. We must rise up and legally redesign government of, by, and for the people. Below nuclear weapons' horrific potential is the endless conventional but real-time mass destructive slaughter. Consider the giant attack weapons, war tanks, artillery, rockets, and bombers, all primarily intended for aggressive foreign invasions to boost murder of mostly innocents beyond the willing fighter's battlefield. Those weapons, plus sheer size of armies, can be cut to the bone and below to successfully attack war and achieve real national security and defense, not the fake security and defense those lousy, lying liars tell you mega-death preparation achieves. Now, our other 10,000-year anti-war experiment was always keep and multiply all brigades, bullets, bazookas, and bombs, but pretty please don't use them. Don't be too ashamed of your plan, peace wimps. Long as you abandon it now and recall who gave you the idea. war leaders always recommend and negotiate this voluntary restraint at intervals when they and the poor people need a tiny breather. But let's keep all the soldiers and weapons, see, because pretty soon we'll want more power, money, and pride. But even fractional disarmament would just ruin our personal plans and careers, while each new bloody outbreak fulfills our every private joy. Never mind the vast public tragedy, except it keeps us in the driver's seat. No, they don't tell you what they love and live for, lest you voters get mad and get even. They lie and say, peace through strength. Sounds clever, like chess. So we buy it. Then the strength never protects, it explodes. But now here comes an enraged enemy. So your violent leaders and your teenagers' sacrifice are both necessary. Gotta continue both, right? You gotta admire the multi-stage con, slicker than snot. Speak softly and carry a big stick. Keep your powder dry. And the nation that supplied upwards of 200 wars since World War II, also directly bombing over 1 million, mostly civilians, to death since the metropolitan slaughters of Germany and Japan to impress our victories upon their people, not just armies or leaders, never stops intoning our lie. Peace through strength. At this writing, Israeli and Iraqi attacks on civilians are with predominantly American weapons, as we likewise marketed the murders of another 1 million people on both sides of India versus Pakistan and Iran versus Iraq. Less than 2% of the wars we sold. Surprised that we jacked the nuclear arms race into all 4 of these nations, among dozens more? And our government's argument for the next $18 trillion, the next $18 trillion to be borrowed for everyone's last 20 war-exploding years on Earth? It's a dangerous world. Don't blame us. Again, the big lie. Because we're the danger. Don't blame them. No glorious or evil philosophy motivates such shameless, audacious, deliberate bullshit. Only money. Addicted hunger for pointless, obscene, unspendable amounts is truly the root of all evil. Write your own legislation and send it to your congressman and your composed, argued lawsuit and send it to your federal district court. Each forever stopping every private dollar gifted to liars claiming to serve all the public instead of mostly pay-to-play special interests delivering most of the politicians' income for quid pro quos from your tax money. We must never forget that even a little extra private money into the pocket of an aggressive political male, and sometimes female, always makes him or her do anything to get more and keep it coming. Nationally, this usually means buy ever more weapons and force the people into wars. Both tremendous techniques to wipe out your extra taxes and jack up bribes and debt. The propaganda key to perpetuating war leadership and budgets is the 100% lie that inflating arsenals shrinks war, or even intends to. Small gaps between wars, high-armed standoffs, are termed deterrence, which always fails with the impetus and intention of the arms race. Regarding nuclear weapons, you always hear, 70 years since our first nuclear bombing, without more proves the protective safety of a world full of bombs. More ingenious propaganda for the ignorant. Experts, such as the Union of Concerned Scientists, calculate our approach to extinction from seconds to midnight during the Cuban Missile Crisis to the more typical doomsday clock at around 6 minutes till today. My speeches go over technology and history, which informs our titanic danger, growing with elapsed time, leaving only temporary dumb luck for the war fighter's argument. Only the 1 in 200,000 who thoroughly read up on nuclear weapons can't buy the mutual assured destruction is our security blanket crap. Everyone else is nicely pacified and distracted. As the shocking nuclear histories dwindle out of print and even out of even half-price books, the few educated left dry up with age and apathy. And doomsday arrives. Rotten scholarship and attribution notwithstanding, my talks urgently recapture the nuclear menace as a call to action. I believe that if you sit down and walk away, then we're dead. Read any single book from my list and you will understand. War leaders always lift lying to an art form. All history to the contrary, they never stop describing themselves as grand leaders for peace, ever achieved by amassing ever more giant, deadly arsenals. Your ignorance of history is exactly how they get away with dooming us to repeat it, for only their benefit. As long as we keep building our war machine, ever greater than enemies, we drive to similar competition, all preparing for giant wars. Why, we're winning permanent peace, you see. Trust us. Then, in a few months or years, they select and start, surprise, surprise, another giant war. Oops, so sorry, how'd that happen? You say you're pissed? Too late. Can't change horses or generals or stop any war in midstream. But hey, we're gonna win this glorious fight in a year or two. Either that or get nowhere in 10. But long as you hand over $1 trillion or $2 for my favorite companies, shut your mouths and accept PTSD, maiming, or death for your young sons and daughters, we'll be fine. Not most of you, of course. We'll be fine. Us few, more than equal, fat cats and top dogs. As I've already noted, the breathtaking lie that arms races keep the peace has infected the public psyche, including the entire, if tiny, peace movement, 100% believing that leaders left alone without any anti-corruption or disarmament law in place may nevertheless someday be spiritually and ethically persuaded, pretty please, to always keep their paws off the bribes and bombs we let 'em keep. The galactic stupidity and unoriginality of modern peace theorists angers me as much as the interlocking strategy and persuasive fiction from the warmongers fascinates me. Virtually all governments, so-called peace or arms control negotiations, are founded on the principle that peace can be pursued by rushing to make even more dangerous bombs, missiles, and bombers during sleight-of-hand weapon juggling for public benefit, but never any real mutual weapons destruction below, say, 30 billion person kill capacity. Conventional weapons reduction talks to cut seriously into the world's million yearly slaughtered total have never even begun. But if corrupt governments simulated that parley, our deal wouldn't change. Mass profits are essential. Mass death is useful collateral. Yes, here's the motive for the infinite lies and murder. Weaponeering causes war, which depletes weapons so they can sell and buy more. Paul's raking the top off your pile of wages. And imminent doomsday jacks fear, springing more wallets. It's the money, honey! And bribery opens the spigots of thievery and war. We're 3/4 of a century into nuclear arms control negotiations, always designed to escalate danger, not reduce it. Hence the endless games in publicly capping this technology while quietly starting or improving that one, such as 14 cities obliterated by a single missile with multiple independent targeted re-entry vehicles, and the same technology allowing one submarine to kill 160 cities, and in 5 to 10 minutes. And the thoroughly cowed, indoctrinated peace dreamers only manage to whine that someday we'll volunteer to love each other somehow. Miracle accomplished without mention or thought of a single weapon destroyed, a single soldier discharged, or a single law changed, or constitutional command enforced. Hey, ain't that exactly the same garbage peddled by the financiers of the apocalypse? Don't touch our system. Just buy our promise of sweet peace. Plus a $40 trillion extinction tax, of course. An entire world bemused, befuddled, and bewitched. Bullied, bamboozled, and brainwashed. Distracted, deceived, dejected, disturbed, and diseased. Maneuvered, manipulated, mesmerized, and hypnotized, enchanted, entranced, and romanced. Recruited and booted, violenced and silenced. Well, to state the obvious, here's one little fella who ain't going quietly. My world ends with a bang, not a whimper. You can't win the peace without disturbing it first. Make noise!